Toshile, warm greetings. Warm greetings. Yay. So we've gathered together once again to get some time and savor our opportunity to connect with and practice and also reflect on the Dudjom Tersar Ngondro and also the Buddha Dharma in general. So we'll begin again, as we always do, is to reconnect to our home base, which is principally about our motivation. What is my mind doing? What's my heart doing? So those three key points that we always come back to, that Venerable Khenpo Rinpoches and all these lineage masters just always come back to, is one, awaken a mind aimed towards liberation. We do this by renouncing the causes of suffering. So this renunciation mind, or joy and appreciation. So bring up this buoyant, bright joy and appreciation for this precious opportunity we have to absorb even further and integrate the Dharma with our lives, with every breath. So this joyful kind of approach. And then all beings, like our parent sentient beings who've cared for us so much for so long, then try to bring them to mind. That part of the motivation is that we're going to study and practice the Buddha Dharma so that we can be of immediate, direct, effective benefit to each and every single sentient being so they can be happy and be free from the causes of suffering and suffering itself, and eventually, hopefully very soon, attain liberation, enlightenment. And then thirdly, because this is a Vajrayana or Tibetan Buddhist practice, then we reawaken or reignite our pure perception, or that devotion, the closeness we have to the lineage, to our own true nature, to the true nature of all beings. So we awaken, turn on this pure perception, kind of be and see that form, sound, space, that all these experiences we have, like right now, this very moment, is essentially and completely pure. It is unstained, it is perfect. And just the very nature of this experience now and all experience, outer, inner, the world and all the beings in it are essentially pure. So we kind of turn on these three qualities of joy and appreciation, and bodhicitta, and pure perception. Thank you. So it's such a sacred opportunity to have to reflect on the Dharma, and today the topic kind of going to explore just a little bit called Bodhichitta, leaning into the future beyond this life. So Bodhichitta, leaning into the future beyond this life. So the principal topics here in terms of the Ngondro is this Bodhichitta, and also impermanence. The great master R. Yeshe Yunye is like a pillar of the Semde lineage, the mind class. In Dzogchen, these are the two foundations of authentic Dzogchen practice. Bodhichitta, heartfelt bodhicitta, and also this very visceral lived experience of impermanence. This opportunity is constantly leaving us. It's dissolving. It's like such a special, rare time we have to practice and study the Dharma. So if we really ignite these two in our lives, impermanence and bodhicitta, it lines everything up. We kind of tune into the nature so that we become receptive of the nature. We can fully express the nature, our own nature. These are essential as Vajrayana practitioners and Dzogchen practitioners, and that means practitioners of the Dudjom Tersar Ngondro. So today, to explore this topic a little bit, which we won't do very long, it'll be kind of a little condensed. I'm largely just going to rely on the precious sacred Vajra words of some of the masters that we're so fortunate to have close to us, that their words still exist. Some of them are still alive. So highlighting this, the fact of bodhicitta, And there's only so much time we have to really mingle our minds with bodhicitta. And so what does that mean in the context of this life? It's just the window is always closing more and more. This life. So I'm kind of jump right into the words of some of these great masters. And I thought the big frame is for today, the 37 practices of the Bodhisattvas by the great master Ngülchu Thogme Zangpo. The 37 practices of the Bodhisattvas in stanza 4, the fourth practice, is that long associated companions will part from each other. Wealth and possessions obtained with effort will be left behind. Consciousness, the guest, will cast aside the guesthouse of the body. Letting go of this life is the Bodhisattva's practice. So then the second big frame is called Parting from the Four Attachments. And this was a teaching that was said to be directly taught by Manjushri to Sachen Kunga Nyingpo. Parting from the four attachments. If you are attached to this life, you are not a true spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. I'll repeat these. If you're attached to this life, you're not a true spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. So these are the general frames for this contemplation before we do the Dudjom Tersar Ngondro practice. And so it's good to highlight specifically with these parting from the four attachments, the second, third, and fourth are the same 3 points that we try to bring up at the beginning of every time we study and practice. Renunciation, bodhicitta, and pure perception. And this pure perception is based on the middle way Yamaka view, and then in addition it includes pure relative truth, which we just very casually, easily call pure perception. So great equality with pure relative truth. This is called pure perception. So these 3 points, even in these parting from the four attachments, they're highlighting 3 of the points we really try to activate every time we turn our minds toward the Dharma. Renunciation, bodhicitta, pure perception. These are so essential. Which just means it'll only be good for us to keep coming back to them again and again and again. Because that's what we have to do in our practice anyway. So they'll never go wrong. There'll always be reliable ways to orient our study and our practice. So if we're have an afternoon, we don't know what to do, maybe reflect on or practice renunciation, bodhicitta, pure perception, or just mingle it with whatever we happen to be doing. Well, then we'll have 3 of these, we'll have parted from 3 of the big 4 attachments. At least in that time where we're really activating that. And then the first one, if you're attached to this life, you're not a true spiritual practitioner. This is kind of a strong topic. It's a strong statement, as well as the 4th practice of the Bodhisattva. Letting go of this life is the Bodhisattva's practice. Sometimes it seems good to highlight the impermanent nature of our opportunity now. That it's just, we only have so long. And then what comes after we pass, we die, we'll see. But while the opportunity's in our hands, we really do have so much on our own side to practice the Dharma and to study, to refine our habits. I thought a big point of this is part of the full Dharma path isn't just to know that there's suffering. That's the first noble truth. There is suffering. Suffering of suffering, suffering of change, suffering of conditioned existence. We have to clearly hold that in mind. then in addition, we have to look, what's the cause of suffering? Is there a way to completely remove the cause of suffering? And if there is, what's the path of doing that? We shouldn't stop at the first noble truth. Not just there's suffering. Because if we only go that far and we don't work on the causes of suffering and removing them, then it basically kind of ruins all of our fun. It's just we're going to see suffering everywhere. Pervasive suffering of conditioned existence. We can't stop there as Dharma practitioners. We have to actually look at the cause, which the Buddha taught was our own kleshas, our own afflictive emotions, our own grasping, and the activities we do based on that grasping. And we have to really try to uproot them and not feed them so much until they're really totally gone. This is what it means to be a Dharma practitioner. And this is completely an inside job. The cause of suffering is my own afflictive emotions and the activities I do based on them. It's my own grasping and the activities I do with grasping mind. It's just easily called duality mind. This has to be uprooted. That's the path. And then how do we uproot this? Bodhichitta. There's two bodhicittas we've all heard, relative and absolute bodhicitta. So I'll jump to Venerable Khenpo Rinpoche's in Illuminating the Path. Their Ngondro book on the Dudjom Tersar Ngondro, which we've referred to quite a lot for these times. I'm just jumping to page 93. When Buddha Shakyamuni was alive, there was a famous king named Prasannajet who ruled much of northern India from his capital in Shravasti. He's very devoted to the Buddha, but did not have a lot of time to practice because of his worldly duties. His heart was with the Buddha, but he couldn't connect deeply with the Dharma. This worried him, so one day he asked the Buddha what to do. The Buddha said, "If you can do only one practice, you will be applying yourself all the time." "What would that be?" asked the king. "It is generating bodhicitta," said the Buddha. "Bring bodhicitta into each of your daily activities, whether you are standing, walking, sitting, or sleeping. While you're governing the kingdom or whatever you're doing, if you keep bodhicitta in your heart, it will transform all your actions into the practice of Dharma." So not only do we know this life is fleeting, and we're not really so sure what's next, we do know what we need to do to uproot the cause of suffering, is activate bodhicitta. Kind of simply put, sometimes it's good to just hit the essentials. Oh, the second one of this, which is jumping 2 pages ahead. I almost forgot. I was a little worried to say it, but then this book we've referred to so much in this. Page 96, Venerable Khenpo Rinpoche's. Patrul Rinpoche said that without bodhicitta firmly established in your heart, even if you have memorized the Dzogchen Tantras and can quote all the Mahamudra texts, you're merely paying lip service to the Dharma. He said that no matter how vast your view is, without bodhicitta, whatever you say is the doctrine of demons. He felt strongly about this, saying that people who talk about their experiences of bliss and emptiness in Vajrayana practice, without having bodhicitta as a foundation, should have their mouths stuffed with the garbage of 9 cities. Kind of strong. That's Patrul Rinpoche, the great master Patrul Rinpoche, words of my perfect teacher. This is just to say, it's all about bodhicitta. And if we're not really taking that to heart, which I don't all the time, then I watch out and wasting my time. I'm wasting my precious opportunity to actually completely uproot the causes of my own suffering so I can really help other beings. So watch out, Dragpa. Garbage of 9 cities. Secondly, these are so many gems here. The Heart Treasure of the Enlightened Ones by His Holiness Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. This is such a sacred text. Page 32. In this decadent age, let's see here. 1 second. Make sure I read the right one. Page 33. So it's in the chapter, The Shortcomings of Our Decadent Age. If you follow the example of most people in this decadent age, you will end up being just like them, an expert fraud. You will waste your life chasing after the unattainable. You will be like children who are so busy playing that they're indifferent to hunger and cold and don't notice the day passing until it gets dark and they suddenly remember their mother and start crying. If you genuinely want to help beings, you must first perfect yourself. If you make a lot of ambitious plans, doing business, collecting disciples, and setting yourself up as a teacher, you will end up like a spider caught in its own web. Spending your life spinning such webs, you won't notice how fast time is passing until you suddenly realize that death is at hand. You will have used all your energy and gone through all sorts of hardships, but these hardships, like the trials of spiritual practice, will not have helped you in the least to improve yourself. The holy Kadampa teachers used to practice in a very humble way, completely disregarding comfort and entertainment. And our teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, left the pleasures of his palace behind and practiced austerities for 6 years. Since we are his followers, should not we too relinquish all worldly concerns, forget the endless distractions of our friends and relatives, and wholeheartedly follow the instructions of a genuine teacher? What is the good of getting involved in samsaric issues? Everything in samsara undergoes constant upheaval. Millionaires become beggars, and beggars become millionaires. Whatever happens, people are never content. If they make 1 million, they want to make 2. If they make 2 million, they want to make 3. How will you ever be satisfied like that? There's only one thing of which you should never feel you have had enough: your Dharma practice. Be like a hungry yak, who as he grazes is always looking ahead to see where more grass can be found. If you practice in this way, you won't be disappointed. If you actually tried to achieve everything you want for this life, there would never be enough time. It is said, all those plans are like children's games. If we put them into action, they will never be finished. But if we just drop them, they are all finished at once. So this is related with renunciation mind. It's good to emphasize, too, that even a little bit of turning towards these teachings is a significant adjustment. It's a really beneficial. We don't have to achieve enlightenment all at once. That's never how that happens. Little by little. So we don't have to hold some giant end goal, and if we're not there tomorrow, then we get upset. Every little step is so significant. So we should really celebrate and rejoice in all the good things we can do to orient our minds towards the Dharma and to be kind to others and generate bodhicitta even for a moment. I'm going to end on an inspiring note, but before I'm going to kind of pull out the rug a little more, okay? All right, this is only Sakya Trizin, the 41st Sakya Trizin. Freeing the heart and mind, introduction to the Buddhist path. Page 86. This is on parting from the 4 attachments. This specific book, most of it's on parting from the 4 attachments. So this first line of the parting from 4 attachments again, if you have attachment to this life, you're not a religious person. We said before, not a spiritual practitioner. Then His Holiness goes on to say, the general contents of this first line are common to Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana traditions. The first line directly describes the right way and the wrong way to practice Dharma. Right Dharma practice, pure Dharma practice, is not attached to this life. Practicing Dharma with attachment to this life is not real Dharma. It is still just worldly activity. Just like a mirage that appears to be water but does not quench thirst, such activity is apparently Dharma, but does not liberate you from the sufferings of samsara. If you practice Dharma with attachment to this life, any practice that you do, whether it is moral conduct, study, contemplation, or meditation, will not even result in the accomplishment of prosperity in this life. If the goal of Dharma practice is to gain fame, disciples, or wealth, the practice will become the seed of the lower realms and samsara instead of becoming the seed of liberation and enlightenment. It is not actual Dharma practice. The great Indian master Vasubandhu said, upon a base of sound moral conduct, hear, contemplate, and thoroughly apply yourself to meditation. To be pure Dharma, whatever practice you do should not be mixed with attachment to this life. This is because this life is very transient. Very few people live longer than 100 years. This life is also without essence. Everything is impermanent and is not really worthy of attachment. The goals of the Dharma path have many different levels. To say nothing of liberation or enlightenment, we should, at minimum, practice for a purpose beyond this life. In other words, at least for the benefit of our next life. The first line of the teaching, if you have attachment to this life, you're not a religious person, directly explains the right and wrong ways to practice Dharma. Indirectly, it points to the difficulty of obtaining a precious human birth endowed with the 18 prerequisites. It also, because of impermanence, indicates the importance of diligently practicing Dharma without any delay. Not only humans, but every sentient being possesses Buddha nature. The true nature of every sentient being's mind is unstained by obscurations. Any sentient being that meets with the right methods has the opportunity to become a fully enlightened Buddha. However, among the 6 types of sentient beings, human beings have the best chance to accomplish Buddhahood. Therefore, this human life, in particular one endowed with 18 prerequisites, is very precious and difficult to find. So I think what it does actually is like really trying to focus not just on this life, the immediate benefit of Dharma, but at least next life, and then on and on and on into the future, is it actually makes us use our time right now really well. If we really take a long-term and vast view, thinking about all beings, for as long as it takes, which is what Bodhichitta does, then it means it'll immediately make us want to really seize the opportunity of right now. Which doesn't mean give up all the things we love and like kind of, shave our heads and go like never talk to anyone again. It means like really actively activate bodhicitta right now and then do all the things of our daily lives. And if being a monastic is more like what suits your mind to really bring up bodhicitta, then do that. Or if having kids does that, or if like being in a cave does that, or if just working at your job does that. Whatever it is, just like the Buddha taught to King Prasanajit. Bodhicitta is the main practice, and everything becomes Dharma practice if we bring up bodhicitta. So if we really think, if we're really concerned about the future, it really means bring up bodhicitta now. And not just so that I'll be free of suffering, but all beings will be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. And so then here we get more into the strict definition of bodhicitta, because there's relative bodhicitta and absolute bodhicitta. And I'm just really wanting to resound the words of these noble beings, because we have these noble beings are here and their words are here. So I've kind of thought to just use this time mainly to just recite repeat the words of the Buddha. I think this will never go wrong. So here, if we're looking more at the absolute nature of bodhicitta, because it's not just being nice. It's actually about removing all the causes of suffering for all beings. So then jump to this book, Not for Happiness, which is another way to say it's not just about being nice. A guide to the so-called preliminary practices. This is also another commentary on Dudjom Tersar Ngondro by Zogsar Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche. I'm jumping here to page 114 where he starts discussing bodhicitta and kind of highlighting more the absolute nature of bodhicitta. Until we've established a complete understanding of bodhicitta, we will continue to make the mistake of imagining that pain truly exists. As a result, we will almost certainly become the victims of our own compassion, and without fully appreciating non-duality, our every activity will lead to disappointment. For example, as a therapist, how far are you prepared to go to help an alcoholic or a drug addict? Imagine that one of your clients is certain to be reborn a drug addict for the next 5,000 lifetimes. As a bodhisattva, your determination to help her should be so great that you aspire to be reborn at the right time and in the right place during every one of those lifetimes, so you can continue her treatment. Fast forward to the 5,000th lifetime. Your client has been reborn in a lonely, God-forsaken country, And all you have to do to ensure that she will never again be reborn as an addict is hang out with her for half a day. This means that you must also be reborn in that wretched place, and that the entire focus of your life will be to get you to the right place at the right time to spend those few hours with your client. To do this, you will need what the teachings describe as strength or determination, courage and commitment, right? And you will only find this strength once you come to realize the illusory nature of all phenomena. In other words, emptiness. So how do you develop the remarkable strength of compassion you need to be able to behave so selflessly? How do you develop the determination never to give up? Where do you find the confidence and tenacity to keep trying? Every one of these qualities springs from the realization that the drug addict, her problem, that she can be healed, and even the idea that she needs healing are all merely the products of your own mind. None of it truly exists outside the mind. And having realized this truth, you can go on to develop the strong and genuine compassion that is bodhicitta. So this is highlighting the importance of absolute bodhicitta, or impermanence, or shunyata. That it's, of course, it's loving kindness and compassion, but it's also wisdom, or prajna. Bodhicitta always has wisdom and compassion, not just compassion. And without kind of really seeing the illusory nature of samsara, of suffering, will always be in duality mind. And then we won't really fully uproot these causes of suffering. So I'm not saying I can do this at all. I'm just saying it's really clear in the teachings that bodhicitta really has this relative and absolute side as well. And the absolute side is, this is all my mind. And if we go closer, my mind is pure. My mind is totally flexible, and all these powers and capacities are they're fundamentally a part of every single moment of my experience, and I just have to connect to them and let them do what they do. In other words, be natural. So this bodhicitta resolve, just to say, there's a lot of ways to unpack impermanence in bodhicitta. I thought to pick out a few strong statements, because sometimes we can just think, oh, impermanence, of course. Oh, bodhicitta, of course. But when we really look at the teachings and what we're asked to do, to how to really ignite this in our experience, and that we're looking out, there's so much suffering, and inside there's so much kind of movement all the time, that really try to bring to home, what is this impermanence? What is bodhicitta? Why is it such an elixir that really solves all the problems? How does it lead us to non-duality, or beyond the limitations of duality mind? That's a really real question for practitioners, because we're not going to stop samsara from being samsara. It's going to always keep being samsara. But if we see more clearly, then the opportunity for bodhicitta to shine on really happens. And then we can really integrate all of our activities with Dharma. And that becomes not just a fairy tale or a nice thing to say, but actually a lived experience, that all these noble beings we have the great fortune to be around, they're living embodiments that is possible. That truth is not some fairy tale, it's not some mythical thing, it didn't just happen a long time ago. They're living embodiments of the Dharma right now. And so to end on a high note, I'm going to just read this Garland of Views, the 8 Great Bodhisattvas. This is such an inspiring book. This is by Mipam Rinpoche, where he goes over each of the 8 Bodhisattvas and pulls out sutra teachings about their activities. And if you want some really so powerful, impactful bedtime stories, and just things to connect with. Wow, these life stories of these noble 8 bodhisattvas, so strong. They're so inspiring, what they did and what they're doing. So to end on a high note, not just be like, oh, I think of this life all the time, so I'm not a true spiritual practitioner. Okay, I think of that like that all the time. But then we have to look at the power of bodhicitta. What are we talking about? How does it remove all the causes of suffering? We should really highlight the benefit of enlightenment, the benefit of the Dharma, not just the downside of samsara, but also the goodness of seizing the opportunity. So here I go to the chapter on Avalokiteshvara, who is also the source of the 37 practices of Bodhisattva.
This goes into the chapter of Avalokiteshvara,
the all-seeing one. Page 169. One could count the number of drops of water in an ocean by removing it, drop by drop, with the tip of a hair. If it rained heavily and continuously day and night for a year or even 13 months, one could still count the number of raindrops fallen in that period. One could not, however, measure the aggregate of merit accumulated by a single recitation of the 6 syllables, O Mani Padme Hum. If all the men, women, boys, and girls in the 4 continents became bodhisattvas on the 7th level bhumi, the aggregate of all their merit would still be greatly exceeded by the aggregate of merit gained by a single recitation of the 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Hum. Even if millions of Tathagatas were to describe it for an entire Deva Kalpa, they could not enumerate the aggregate of merit gained by a single recitation of the 6-syllable awareness mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. What need is there to say that I, a single Tathagata abiding in this world, am unable to do so? Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. The power of our Dharma practice is just immeasurable. Doing the Dudjom Tersar Ngondro together, turning our minds toward the Dharma when it's such a decadent age that's trying to turn our minds away from the Dharma all the time. Just moving a little bit towards Bodhichitta, highlighting Bodhichitta once, Om Mani Padme Hum, just saying it once, just longing for Dharma, wishing one day we could go on retreat, let alone having a daily practice, coming together into some video, disembodied, 2-screen, live webcast thing. We're doing that, and we keep doing it, and the benefit is so significant. We should really highlight that. Thank you for showing up. Om Mani Padme Hum. May we keep showing up together forever and ever for the benefit of all beings, and really seize the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And all this is a reminder for my own mind, because I'm just so burdened with samsaric activities, samsara, and all the causes and afflictive and everything. But I know, time's short. I know that every now and then I remember. And in Bodhichitta, every now and then I remember. That's the whole point of this. Bodhichitta, right? So if I can bring those up in my own mind, I have a minute. I have a minute to do the Mani mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. That is a life that's worth living. And that minute is so vastly significant, and we should not forget how significant even a moment of turning our mind towards the Dharma is. So really, thank you all for showing up. So glad to be in this together with you all. Yay. May we do it forever. Thank you.